Welcome back to the show, folks. This is another drive time episode on the way home. It's a beautiful Wednesday evening. Sun is shining, it's absolutely roasting outside, but it's a mad one what we have to talk about today. We're going to be taking a look at the Jordan Henderson interview. A lot of people have been creating content on it and stuff like that, so I thought I'd jump on, do a little episode on it. I'm going to be talking about it more on Henry's channel tonight at 7 o'clock, so make sure you check that out as well. But it's a kind of a weird one, isn't it? When these international breaks come around, players seem to lose their mind and think that that's the exact time when they should start flinging shit and talking crap. And it's a kind of a weird one with this one as well, because obviously when Jordan was moving to Saudi Arabia, there was a lot of heated discussion, there was a lot of questions. You know, the LGBTQ plus community felt a little bit let down because he was kind of the ambassador for them. He was the focal man and all that kind of thing. And they felt really let down from a moral point of view that he was moving to a country like Saudi Arabia with its stance on that situation. So we got it. I understood it. And I said it at the time. Look, I said what the man has done is he's basically parked his moral compass and he's decided to prioritise the generational wealth that's on offer, that secures financially his family and his grandkids and whatever amount of cycles you want to go down, basically, you know. And that was just simply the case, and it all kind of died down and people had moved on, and you know, there wasn't that much discussion about it anymore, you know. And then all of a sudden there seems to be a need for an interview, you know. And hats off to the Athletic, David Ornstein and Adam Crafton, who did the interview and stuff like that. And it kind of felt weird. The interview nearly felt like a party political broadcast and stuff like that, and the talk in it about not wanting to get political and stuff like that. But it kind of was quite political in a little kind of way, you know. And it was kind of weird as well. There was sort of like, it felt like there was answers and then questions to those answers, and it was kind of back and forth, and it was kind of, you know, do this but can't do this and all this kind of thing. And I kind of was wondering, going down listening to the interview, the questions that really came out for me, as opposed to the detail of the interview, was why did Jordan feel a need to do this interview? Things are quieting down, people had moved on, Liverpool had started their season really well, the midfield had settled in. There was really no issue, everyone had moved on. Now I get it, you know, the kind of players who want these kind of send-offs and their legacies and their history and all that kind of stuff. Jordan Henderson's legacy and history in Liverpool Football Club is cemented in there. There's no issue. He is the captain who took us to the Premier League. He's the captain who took us to the Champions League. He's the captain who captained our club that we love to win it all under Jurgen Klopp. We remember all the emotional moments of the Premier League being presented to him, and Kenny Dalglish and the masks during the COVID stuff. We remember the Champions League images with Jurgen Klopp and the glasses hanging off, and those moments that he shared with his father, who had gone through an illness, and all that kind of stuff. And my own background story that was told many times. I had kind of checked out on Jordan Henderson, and then back in 2018 I was sitting in Carragher's bar with Dino. I've told this story before, and we were playing Southampton, and Jordan Henderson came on and totally changed the game. I think he scored a cracking goal and he also assisted a goal, and he totally changed the game. Lewis Garcia was there dancing on the bar like something out of Coyote Ugly. It was absolutely madness. It's a great bar, even if you're not a Liverpool fan. If you're in New York and you want to go watch football, go and book Carragher's bar. It's absolutely electric. The atmosphere is unreal. It's a real sporting type of bar. Don't let the name fool you in terms of Liverpool and stuff like that. It's a great bar to go watch football when you're in the States. So after that then I checked in and I said, look, I'm all in. He's my captain. That's it. I'm going to get behind him, support him in every which way, all that kind of stuff. And that's what I did. And during all this kind of uproar and stuff like that, when he was leaving and stuff like that, and listen, we all knew that the conversation was going to happen with Klopp. We all knew it was going to be made very clear that there might need to be a change in the captaincy. We all knew that he would be getting reduced game time, that the drop off, we could see that the drop off was happening, that he wasn't the player that he was. We've seen the issues in our midfield. You know, the owners and Klopp have a lot to bear on that as well, that they didn't refresh that midfield on an ongoing basis every couple of transfer windows and stuff like that. And what we did was we let that midfield age out, and between players that were injured all the time, the Oxes and the Keitas of this world that weren't really available, and then the Milners and the Hendersons and the Fabinhos. Now obviously Fabinho was quite a shock when it happened, stuff like that, but there was no real shock at Jordan moving on. And obviously I said at the time, that's a really good move for all parties, because really what it does is it answers a lot of questions for Jurgen Klopp that he doesn't have to answer, in terms of the captaincy, in terms of, you know, having to oblige him by playing him and stuff like that, because he's the club captain and all that kind of thing. So it answered a lot of questions for us, and it suited at the time. And of course it all blew up, but then it died down. Everyone was good with it. It was all good. You know, people had moved on. We were back into the season. McAllister came in, brilliant. Szoboszlai came in, outstanding. You know, Endo had come in trying to play the six and stuff like that. That was okay. We brought in Gravenberch. And I'm sitting back and I'm wondering, why do this interview? Like, this felt like this Piers Morgan, Ronaldo moment, you know. And I'm thinking, Captain, why do you want to open up this wound again and tarnish this legacy that's set? Why would you want to do that? What's the issue here? You know what I mean? Is there an issue with the club? Is there an issue with the way you left? Is there an issue with the heat you were getting at the time? Is there a moral issue here that you're finding it difficult to adjust to? Do you feel you should have got a better send-off? These send-offs are very difficult. We've seen it with De Gea, we've seen it with Jordan, we've seen it with Fabinho, we've seen it with a number of players. And there's not a whole lot you can do about it. It's really, really, really difficult. So from that point of view, you know, you have to look at and you have to think about what needs to be done and what has to happen. And this interview for me was really a poor choice, in terms of you should have let things just die down, got on with your life in Saudi Arabia and whatever else you wanted to do. But there's obviously an issue there. There was obviously something that he wanted to get off his chest. There was obviously something that he wanted to get out there. I think what he was trying to do was smooth over the situation that happened with the LGBTQ community, in terms of, you know, how he was still supporting them and he was trying to change things in the country, you know, trying to influence it from the inside out. Whether he's capable of doing that or not, I probably doubt. I'm not sure. It could evolve, who knows, but certainly, you know, the pictures coming out with the coloured armband being black and whited out and all that kind of stuff and all would lead you to believe that maybe that would be quite difficult. So the interview went on and stuff like that, and the interview talks about a number of things that I want to highlight. The first thing I kind of checked out on the interview was that the move wasn't financially motivated, but then he says that, you know, but players should know their value and their work should be done and all this kind of thing, and that all happens through money. So kind of he was talking out about both sides of his mouth on that one, because obviously money was a factor. You know, if it wasn't a factor, why did you go to Saudi Arabia? You know, you could have got maybe a move to Brighton or Brentford or whoever it was, you know what I mean? But you wouldn't get near the offer that you got, nowhere near it. So money obviously was a factor. You know, and I'd kind of preferred if the captain just came out and he said, listen, I was offered the bag and I went and I took the bag and that was it, and I prioritised my family's financial future over my moral compass at the moment, and that's it. Fine. Say it. You know what I mean? Don't turn around and act like, oh, money wasn't a motivating factor. Money, going to Saudi Arabia, money will always be a motivating factor. And whether you think it should look after itself, you think about your age, you think about the contract, one of your last contracts in football and stuff like that and all, you're not going to get offered anywhere near that. You were being offered somewhere in the region of 3 to 4 times your wages, all that kind of thing. I don't know how it panned out in the end when they did the deal and the adjustments and all that kind of stuff, but it's massive money. Massive money you would have been never offered anywhere on the continent of Europe. So money was obviously a motivational thing, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't, you know, that's like all of us would take that into account. You know, if I'm working today and someone comes in and offers me a position in a different country, they're going to pay me 10 times the wage I'm on now, you know, there's a motivation there naturally. We're all human beings, you know what I mean? So to turn around and start the interview kind of like that, talking about money not being a motivation and all, that kind of gets you to check out pretty quickly on it. Then he spoke about like trying to influence things, you know, internally in the country and stuff like that. And they talked about the rainbow laces and all that kind of stuff, and you know how he was sorry that he had disappointed so many people, but was also sorry by the reaction and all that kind of stuff. Now the reaction should have been self-evident. He should have known that was going to happen. But that's a difficult one as well, because then he also turns around after that and he says, but I'm in a country and I have to recognise their culture and their laws and their situation and all that kind of stuff. So straight away you're saying, right, I'm still in support of this, but I'm definitely not going to be able to influence it, because I have to abide by the country's laws and, you know, their religious situation, their culture, and I have to embrace that kind of situation as well. Fine. That's not news to anyone. That's the obvious situation, you know what I mean? So it went on then he talked about, the big one for me was talking about the exit from the club and stuff like that, and you know, he talked about the impact it would have on his England career and stuff like that. Let's not make any bones about this. The boy's England career is winding down. You know, he spent plenty of time on the bench for England and stuff like that and didn't get necessarily the minutes that he wanted, unless there was injuries and stuff like that. He was brought back into that England squad really to bring a little bit of experience in there and stuff like that, not to be playing consistently, and he was concerned about his playing time. But like, it was fairly obvious that his playing time was winding down, and in truth, and probably the club is at fault for this, and Jurgen as well, in truth, they should have been phasing him out nearly 2 years ago, in truth, because his drop off has been pretty monumental and stuff like that. And I'm sure he was concerned. He was talking about, you know, how leaving the club and stuff like that, if Jurgen or the owners had have asked me to stay, you know, or said something, I would have stayed. And I'm thinking, but that doesn't make any sense. You have an opportunity to go and pursue your career with much more playing time, you know, better financial rewards, all this kind of stuff, all these positives about it, regardless of the negatives of the LGBTQ plus stuff and all. And like, you're talking about how if Jurgen Klopp had have asked you to stay, or FSG had have asked you to stay, that doesn't make any sense, because there was no point in you staying, because even if they asked you to stay, you would have gotten what you didn't want, and you would have been disgruntled. You would have been getting 10 minutes here and there in matches. You would have been on the bench for a lot of games. The captaincy would have been called into question. All these things, and it just would have caused a whole tidal wave of stuff for Jurgen Klopp to have to deal with, on top of what he was dealing with in terms of trying to rebuild the squad. So that makes no sense that you were waiting on the club or the ownership to ask you to stay. It made sense for every party in this deal for this deal to happen. Now, is he a little bit bitter maybe that he didn't get the send-off that he wanted, and one day he might come back and be able to have that send-off? Absolutely, but interviews like this don't help that situation either, because you're turning a certain section of the fan base against you again. As I said earlier, you're opening up that wound again and all that kind of stuff, where things had all settled down and people were getting on with the life of being football fans again and stuff like that. So that was kind of the crux of a lot of what he was talking about. But I think for every point he raised, you know, he also made a counterpoint that either negated it or added to it. You know, as we spoke about with the money not being a motivation, but players should know their value and their worth. Well, that's financially driven, you know. Then he also talked about the league and developing the league and, you know, bringing the league up to prominence and all that kind of stuff. When we know that the vast bulk of developing this league is going to be based on the financial investment of the PIF into the Saudi Pro League. That's going to be the big thing, because it's money that's going to bring these players in to raise this profile and stuff like that. And, you know, in a week when we're talking about Mo Salah as Liverpool fans, and, you know, that club going to come back in now and potentially throw a bid on the table, 200 million plus or whatever, and will Liverpool have to resolve to refuse it? And how will that sit with Mo Salah? And this is another enormous deal. And as I said already in podcasts over the last week and all, we have to respect the wishes of the club, we have to respect the wishes of the bid, and we also have to respect the wishes of the player and what the player wants to do, who has given us X amount of fabulous seasons, moments, his return, all that kind of stuff. We have to be respectful of all elements of this, you know what I mean? And for a club to come in and want to offer us over 200 million for a player 31 years of age, and it's going to be very difficult, if near impossible, to replace him and stuff like that, and especially his contribution, goals and assists and all. But you have to look at the broader picture as well, and you think about the time we saw Coutinho, and then Virgil came in and Alisson came in, and it just totally changed the whole dynamic of the team and stuff like that. That could easily happen again with this deal. Come January, we could bring in, we've been linked with the Valverdes of this world. We'd have the financial clout now to go out and do the deals that we weren't able to do, and bring in the players for the gaffer. Because I'm sure even Jordan, when he looks back at this interview and stuff like that, I'm sure part of it is he probably believes that maybe through the ownership and stuff like that, we probably should have won a lot more, and we all believe that as fans as well. We definitely should have won a lot more, and it didn't happen for obvious reasons, because we didn't get that direct investment in, we didn't get that other player that we needed at key times, we didn't do what needed to be done to really step into that situation, and that's probably a part of it as well, but I'd say he's probably a little bit peeved as well at just how quickly the club moved on from him, and that the midfield came in and it's hit the ground running. Why would we be surprised? Szoboszlai, the Hungarian captain, he's absolutely outstanding, 22 years of age. McAllister coming in, knows all about the Premier League with Brighton and all, World Cup winner with Messi. We weren't expecting this midfield to actually fail. Obviously Gravenberch coming in, Endo coming in, Curtis coming back, Thiago hopefully coming back, Bietic coming back, Harvey in there. Like we've a lot of strength in there now in that midfield, and we've a lot of options and stuff like that, and it's unbelievable the job they've done in that area in the transfer window. So it's not a shock, but I just wonder, is it upsetting to him that the club moved on so quick and it's hit the ground running? It looks like that midfield is now bringing the energy and the legs that we were missing and all that kind of stuff. And of course, all the talk of him going, is he hurt by that as well? He gave up a lot of personal time to support these different things in the community, like the LGBTQ plus and stuff like that. And once it was time to go and stuff like that, and it didn't sit well with him, they came in on him hard. Does he feel upset by that? Is he trying to justify his move? You can't justify the unjustifiable. The issue with this move is simply money, and that's really it. It's money, and that is the motivational, generational wealth that was offered, and a deal that suited both club, manager and player. So there was no need to try and justify this move in any way and try and reinvigorate brand Henderson or something like that that's been damaged in certain aspects of it. Most Liverpool fans have probably moved on. They've accepted his place in history and his legacy and everything that he did. We loved him as our captain, but like everything, it ends. Stevie moved on, Robbie Fowler moved on, Kenny Dalglish, they all move on eventually, and knowing the time to move on and not hang around and become a villain is absolutely key. And Stevie knew when to move on. Jordan has now moved on. So I don't really get this interview. So much stuff came out of it that was just unnecessary. The talk of, he talked about how if Jurgen or the owners had said something, he would have stayed. But then he was saying, you talk out the other side of your mouth then saying, oh, but I wasn't forced out or anything like that. Let's get it out here. If you're going to do an interview, don't talk out of both sides of your mouth. Say how you really feel. Don't try and smooth it over. If you're going to do an interview like this, you're not going to be the nice guy. You're not going to be the smiley, nice Jordan Henderson guy. Give the interview and say how you feel about both club and the move and how people reacted to it. And just say it as it is. You don't have to kind of throw things out there and then retract them back in with another comment like you did and stuff like that. So I think overall, there's been a huge reaction to this interview. I think some of it is a little bit unnecessary. I think the whole interview was unnecessary. I don't think there was any reason to do this interview. I don't think it does anything for Jordan Henderson. I don't think it confirmed anything that we didn't know already, except that, he's trying to deliver two stories in one story. And as I said, once we start talking about money not being the motivational thing in a move to Saudi, that's when I kind of check out on these interviews, because that is a huge motivational factor. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments. Let us know what was said in the interview. Let us know how you feel about our ex-captain now. Is he tarnishing his legacy with this? Was there a need to do this interview? I didn't see a lot of Liverpool fans out there craving answers to certain things. I certainly didn't see it. Let me know if you did see it. But how's your feeling now about Jordan Henderson? Seems like he's trying to half kind of pin the move on the club, trying to look the good guy. Money wasn't a factor, of course it was. Trying to continue on with that LGBTQ plus stuff. That's just simply not going to work. Yeah, let us know your thoughts. Until next time, folks, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification, like on the video, share the content, and of course jump in the comments there and let us know what you thought of this interview. You know, was it really worth doing? Felt more like a Piers Morgan thing with Ronaldo than it did about Jordan Henderson with the Athletic. Until next time, folks, an absolute pleasure. Stay safe.